Hi everybody, welcome back to a brand new series on the channel where I'm going to be building this. This is the Border Models original release of the Avro Lancaster in 132 scale. This was obviously the Wingnut Wings kit originally that never was produced under that brand. And Border Models have only recently, I think in the last couple of months, released the Dambuster version of this kit with new parts, including some new transparencies. But this is the original kit. And I'm building this for one of my patrons, Gary. It's going to be done more or less out of the box. I'll be building it as the standard bomber version. But for those of you that have just got the Dambuster version, there's a lot of the build will be common to that aircraft as well. So you might be interested in following along with this build. So this Lancaster will be an occasional build series. I won't be doing it week in, week out, because I've got some other things to do, including this Italeri 132 scale Tornado GR4. That's a commission build, which I need to be starting in the next week or two. So I'll probably be alternating with the Lancaster and the Tornado every other week. The other thing that I'm doing here, which I'm going to have to clear off the bench for a moment, is the Tamiya 148 scale Phantom, which as you can see is coming along, and that's been done over on my Patreon channel. So I'm going to be starting off this week by getting some of the cockpit components sorted out. I'm probably starting off with the pilot's seat and the pilot's pedestal, instrument panel, that sort of area. So I'll crack the massive box open and let's make a start on this one. Okay, here we are with a clear bench. So I'm going to be starting off with just this first page in this first video in the series. So we've obviously got the pilot seat, the platform or pedestal that the pilot seat sits on, and the instrument panel as well. Now I've built the HK 132 scale Lancaster in its Dambuster version, and I had to do an awful lot of work to correct the HK model in this area that I'm going to be building. The proportions of the seat were wrong, the height of the pedestal was wrong, the armour plate was the incorrect size, so it basically had to be rebuilt. But I'm glad to say that Wingnut Wings originally did an awful lot of research and work on this kit, and I'm going to be building this straight out of the box because it is far more accurate than the HK model. So obviously there's a big price difference between the HK kit and this Border Models kit, but from the work that I had to do on that cockpit for the Lancaster just to make it presentable and reasonably accurate, I think that I would go for this one if I was going to buy a 132 scale Lancaster myself now. So let's see how this goes together, and we'll start off by getting all these parts cut out, and I'll do what assembly I can. And the first decision to make is which seat to use, because Border provide two, one with moulded in seat belts and one without. The kit also comes with some photo etch seat belts, which I think probably will look a little bit better in this scale. Even better still would be a set of cloth belts, I think. But as I say, I'm building this for someone else and we want to build it straight from the box. So we'll make do with the photo etch harness for the pilot, see what we can make of it. Just need to be careful with these seat sides because they've got the headrest armour supports moulded into them, which are very fine. There are lots of reviews of this kit on YouTube and elsewhere online if you want to check it out. And I have to say that it's probably had mixed reviews. I think there was quite a bit of disappointment when the kit first was produced. In particular, lots of complaints about the canopy parts, the transparencies, which aren't the best. We'll see how they look when we get to that stage. That's a long way off yet. What's for sure is that the detail on this is absolutely incredible when you look at the interior on it. And I've had a couple of conversations with people about whether or not it's worth cutting at least one side of the fuselage up and around the area of the radio operator and the navigator, so that you can see all the detail that's provided in the kit. Obviously you'd have to have strong nerves to do that. This kit is something like £600 sterling, a bit more probably, in the UK. So it's not a decision that you take lightly to start hacking the fuselage about. Okay, so let's get these cleaned up a little bit. One of the downsides of the border boxing is that the instructions are possibly amongst the worst instructions I've ever seen. They look on first sight like the original Wingnut Wings instruction sheet, but it's the first kit I've probably ever built where there are no paint references at all. Now obviously people that are buying this kit presumably have some considerable experience of modelling, so maybe it's less important and we know where to find the colour call-outs for ourselves. But even so, it's not great. It wouldn't take much to tell us. And the other omission is that the kit provides all sorts of options for things like the radio fit, some of the equipment in the cockpit, which is very specific to particular versions or particular aircraft, depending on how they were equipped for radios and so on. But nowhere in the instructions does it tell us which radio fit, for example, is applicable to which version you're building. So again, you've got to have the references behind you to know that you're doing the right thing. So I think Border are relying quite a bit on the experience of the builder. The other difficulty when building Lancasters is the colour call-outs for the cockpit itself, because it's hard to believe that there's a lot of debate about what the colours were, whether or not they were interior green, black, or a combination of the two. Now, from my research, and this appears to be backed up by the original Wingnut Wings website information on this kit, that most of the interior was green all the way forward to the bomb aimer position. Now, a lot of people say that the cockpit forward of the navigator's table was black, or that the area forward of the instrument panel, so the bomb aimer's position, was just black. But Wingnut Wings originally went with the conclusion that the fuselage sides, the interior of the fuselage sides, was all cockpit green, with one or two areas, maybe the seat and this pedestal that I'm building here, in black. So who knows about that? I don't think anyone does for sure. The other slight problem in terms of the cockpit colour argument is that people often refer to the preserved examples, either the couple of flying examples or other gate guards and things like that, or partial cockpits, which have probably been repainted over the years. So they're not an absolute guarantee of accuracy, I don't think. So I'm going to be going with mainly interior green for this one. I'm going to start off and assemble the seat, and then I can sort the belts out, which I like to mould to the seat before painting it. There was an awful lot of excitement when this kit was first announced. I remember visiting the Wingnut Wings stand at Telford. Can't remember exactly when it was, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, just before lockdown, and the Wingnut stand was besieged with people with test shots of this kit on the table. Of course, it never got to the point of being released by that company, but obviously the production was so far advanced that I suppose it was relatively easy for another manufacturer to take the moulds and produce it for us, which is good. It would have been a real shame if this had never seen the light of day, I think. That armour plate's really nice, it's really thin profile. There's something really odd going on here, because we've got on these seat sides, we've got this moulding here, and that appears to prevent the seat side from sitting properly in its correct position. And I'm looking at the instruction sheet, and they are drawn with this moulding on, but I just can't work out what's going on with that. The other difference here is that this part, which is A30, has the seat back on it, the pad on the back, but as you can see here, it's just the seat pan, and as it's drawn in the instructions, A30 has a bottom pad as well, so that's really strange. Now I think the only way I'm going to be able to get these to fit is to cut off those mouldings at the side. I don't really understand why they're there at all. Now I just had a look, and this is the alternate seat with the moulded in belts, and that fits onto this shelf that I'm puzzled about, but it doesn't work with the alternative seat without the belts on it. There's nowhere in the instructions does it tell you to remove this part here when you're using part A30, so very strange. Something I've noticed about this plastic is that I've had a couple of parts crack and break on me, which is pretty unusual really, so I'm not sure what's going on there. We're just going to have to be careful with some of these fine parts. Okay, I think I'm just going to have to leave that to dry now. It's quite a fragile structure really. That's just because of all the different parts having to come together. Just move the seat to one side and just build up the pedestal. I'm just going to put this pedestal on the cockpit floor just whilst it's drying, just to make sure that everything's going to line up properly. Here we've got the control column. And we've obviously got a separate yoke complete with the brake handle on it. So those sub-assemblies appear to have gone together okay, apart from the puzzling issue with the seat, which I still don't understand. But I'm going to leave those to dry now, and then the next job will be to get the photo etched seat belts moulded to this plastic, and then I'll get everything primed up. Okay, I've been messing around with this seat for quite a while now, because as I've built it straight from the kit, I just can't get it to sit level, or I couldn't do. I've sorted it out now. But the frame at the bottom is really very fragile, and I've replaced the supporting bars here at the back with some styrene rod, as you can see. That's because the kit gets you to glue together two halves of a rod, and it's almost impossible to clean up the join there at the back. Doesn't matter so much with this one, you can hardly see it underneath the seat. But the problem has been trying to get the seat level and square on the platform, and the way I've done that is just to adjust these holes in the pedestal until I've got the seat to sit properly on that platform. But it's certainly not easy, and one of the things that I've found with the plastic that border models have used here is that it's almost resistant to the regular glue that I use, which is Tamiya extra thin. So quite a bit of this I've had to bond with thin CA glue, which isn't ideal really. I don't like using CA in cockpits, just because of the risk of fogging the canopies later on, but I didn't have a choice. It just wouldn't bond to this plastic. So what I'm going to do is give the rest of the sprues a good clean in some detergent. It might just be that there's a bit of grease on them, but it's taken me quite a while just to get this seat together. But I have, and we've got it to the stage where, as I said, I need to get the belts sorted out. So the next job is to get the PE cut, and we'll get them annealed and formed onto the seat. Let's get the plastic out of the way, avoid any accidents with the blowtorch. The brass will buckle and discolour a little bit, but it doesn't matter, we can straighten them up. And that should be enough. So just cut these off the fret. Okay, at this stage I'm going to get the seat primed and painted, and carrying on with the brittle nature of this plastic, I've just snapped one of those supports off, but actually they would look better with some very fine wire, so I'm not too bothered about that. So that's been a bit of a trial, just that first thing that I've come to do on the model. So I'm hoping that the rest of it's going to go together a bit easier than that. This is 0.4mm brass wire. It's just to replace those broken stays for the headrest armour. Actually, these were hinges. The headrest armour folded back down the back of the pilot's seat. Okay, on with the seat now. So I've primed these cockpit parts in black. I've used some Mr. Service 1500 black just for some pre-shading really, and As you can see, I've painted a little bit of yellow onto the armour on the headrest, and I'm just going to mask that off with a circle template. So now I'm going to add the interior green, and for that I mix my own RAF interior green from Tamiya XF71. That's called cockpit green, but for my eye it's not quite grey enough for RAF green. I think it's actually designed to be a Japanese interior green colour. So just a little bit of light grey added to the green mix, and I'm just going to mist that on so I keep some of the black undershading on the assembly. That's the green applied. Now I just want to pick out the back cushion with some dark green, and for this I just use some Citadel paint, and you can usually find a reasonably matched colour in this range, and they're really nice to brush paint. And I think the trick with them is just to apply them in light coats and let them dry, and doing it like that means that you're unlikely to get any brush marks. And I will flat varnish these parts as well, which will blend any brush marks in a little bit if you do get them. Next I'm going to do a bit of dry brushing on these parts, and I'm just using a little bit of sky grey, and that's the grey that I used to alter the colour of the XF71. So it just picks out the detail that's on these parts. The floor itself is actually riveted, so this dry brush should bring that detail out a little bit. Do the same with the seat. With the dry brushing done, I can remove the masking on the armour plate. We need to pick out the undercarriage selection lever in red, so again I'm going to use some Citadel colours for this. I'm just picking out these little adjusting wheels in some Tamiya lacquer aluminium. Again, the Tamiya lacquer paints are really nice to brush paint. Okay, this is the instrument panel in the border kit. I've just painted this black and applied a coat of gloss varnish yesterday, ready for the decals. Now this is the decals sheet, and it's difficult to tell if the individual dials have got their own backing sheet. In other words, are they separate? They appear in some places to be joined up. And I don't really want to apply more than a couple to the moulding because it's often difficult to get them lined up properly. So I'm going to apply them either in pairs or singly, so I'll just cut through them. I've already applied a couple here, and they go on pretty well. They're going to need a coat of gloss over the top to replicate the glass, but that's for later. Just need to get the decals on first. So I'm going to just cut round them. I'm not going to try to punch them out circular. I'll just cut them square like that. The backing film's pretty thin, so I'm happy that they'll settle down all right individually. It's nice to have a set of instrument decals. Believe it or not, in the HK kit, none are provided at all. And I know that that kit's considerably cheaper than this border one, but it's still retailing in the 300 sterling range. So that's a pretty serious omission, really, not to provide any instrument decals. Having said that, these could be better. They could be individually printed. I think would make the job a lot easier. Airscale make a nice instrument panel for the 132 scale Lancaster, and I think it probably would fit this kit as well. Let's see what we can do with what's provided in the box. I just want to be careful about removing these because I don't want to get them mixed up. So we'll start with these engine instruments first. Start off with some microset. So at this point I'm just getting the decals fitted in position and then just adjusting them to make sure that they're sitting in the centre of the instrument face. And having done that, I'll just let them set up for a while before applying some microsol. These do need some sort of solution on them to get them to settle down. There's actually not that much definition on these decals. I'm not sure how well they'll show up on the finished panel. So far they've tended to more or less merge into the black. So I think I've got enough on there for the moment to be dealing with. Don't want any more to be adjusting. So I need to just let them settle down a little bit, and hopefully the microset will draw them down into the bezels a little bit. They're still standing proud at the moment. And once they have, I'll just drop in a little bit of microsol just to finish them off. The ones that I did yesterday, these three, took overnight to really get down into the bezels. So I'm just going to have to be patient. And as always with setting agents, you've got to let them do the job rather than trying to rush them along. So I'll do that and fit the rest of the instruments, and then once they're all set we'll come back and have a look at the next step. Okay, doing a little bit of detail painting now. All the decals have set. Just pick out the throttle quadrants. Again, I'm using Tamiya lacquer gloss aluminium for these. Okay, that'll do for the moment. Next job is to give this a coat of satin varnish. I like to do satin on instrument panels, just gives a little bit of a contrast to the flat that you're using elsewhere on the model. So I'll do that now, and then we can touch the dials in with some clear varnish. Okay, with the satin coat on, I can now fill in the glass on the instruments using some Tamiya LP9 clear varnish. This isn't as difficult as it might look. The bezels are actually very well defined in the kit, so you just need to carefully drop the varnish into the moulding like that. We might need another coat on those, so we'll just see what they're like when the varnish has dried. It won't take too long with it being a lacquer finish. Just give them another coat just to really add some depth to the glass. Okay, I'm happy with that. So we've got the compass to fit, that's this piece here, and also the rudder pedals, which is this unit, goes on the back of the instrument panel, and then the whole assembly can go onto the pilot's pedestal. Now we'll get the seat fitted. So I'll just leave that mounted on the cockpit floor for the moment while everything dries. And I'll call that time for this first episode. We've got the first page of the instructions done. That's decent progress. That's where I want it to be for the end of this first episode. So if you're building the original kit as this is, or the Dambuster version, which is new out as I said, you might want to subscribe to the channel and switch your notifications on. You'll get to know then when I get round to part 2 of the build. So thanks for joining me for this one, everybody. In the meantime, enjoy your modelling, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.